Hey guys, how's it going? Eli here, back with another video where today we're going to be having a fun conversation where I go through and rank each and every set from the Sword and Shield era, as well as my top picks for what product I think you should invest in each one of these specific sets. Without further ado, let's just jump right into it. So as always, getting out of the way, we're doing weekly giveaways. All you have to do to enter is be subscribed, leave a like, and then comment down below on any of the videos we post each and every week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We're going to have 3 winners each and every week that will each be receiving 12 Brilliant Star Booster Packs. On top of that, you can enter in by commenting and liking on all 3 of the videos. So 3 opportunities to enter and then 3 opportunities to win. I do apologize if I do sound a little congested. I don't know what happened. I've got this really bad face cold I've been dealing with for the past couple of days. So I apologize if I do a little sniffling and coughing. Please forgive me for that. But now that I've got that announced out of the way, one last announcement I want to make. We're doing Cosmic Eclipse. And we're doing a Cosmic Eclipse booster box break. As I've mentioned before, I'm offering the packs for less than what I purchased them for, so I'm losing money on this. It's more of just a fun way to get back to you guys. That'll be taking place this upcoming Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We still have about less than 10 packs I want to say available. I don't know if we have people that are interested in just buying them the day of or anything, but as far as it goes, we still have a decent amount left, like less than a third of the box. So if you want to enter in, I would enter in now before we sell out. But now jumping into the topic, so I'm going to start off by just saying the ranking of the set, and then I'm going to go through and explain why. And then I will, at the end of the video, go through in detail of why I think specific items for the sets are the best ones to invest in. Now, with that, a decent amount of them, like 4 of them I want to say, are Elite Trainer boxes, which I don't like it that a lot of them are Elite Trainer boxes. So some of them, I'll just say like, oh, this is the best product next to an Elite Trainer box. But if there's really a set where, if I'm being completely honest, I'm like, man, these items really do suck. And then personally speaking, I'm going to go around and say, yeah, I'm like, these items suck. Obviously, I'm going to say ETB is the best, but runner up, if I were to get something other than ETB for long-term investment that I do think could do well, it's going to be this item specifically. But we're going to start with in my personal opinion, of course, this is opinion. This is not, everyone can change their mind on what their personal thoughts are. I'll go through my thought process. You can agree, you can disagree, but I would say, and this might sound controversial, I would say Sword and Shield base is probably, in my personal opinion, I would say it's probably the least desired set for me personally speaking. And we can go through right now and we can take a look at the Sword and Shield base set, and we can just take a look at it all together. So when taking a look at the set and just looking at the cards, I mean, obviously you're going to get the Marnie, and that's like kind of the best card. And you have a couple of these rainbows and gold cards that you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. I guess it does have some Gen 1ers. It's got a Snorlax, it's got a Lapras. And so there's a decent amount of cards that you can pull, but there's nothing really exciting. There's nothing really that you're like, wow, I can't believe I pulled this. This is crazy. Only the Marnie and the Quick Ball, in my personal opinion, I would say that I really care to pull. And even then, the majority of the other cards that you're pulling, the only kind of basis for pulling these cards or the general excitement is these are mainly competitively viable cards. I mean, these are all, like, just looking at these top ones, these are all in the standard format that are used very often. I would say maybe the Lapras and the Snorlax are used less often. I remember when the meta first came out, they're used pretty heavily, but as far as it goes, like, you're really looking at these top 10 cards of what you're trying to pull. So it's not really a crazy set. There's not really a ton of great things to kind of get. But as far as it goes outside to the main pulls, one thing that is actually kind of nice is that you can actually make a decent amount of your money back if, we're just talking about from an opening perspective, off of a lot of these uncommon trainer cards that are competitively viable. I mean, you can obviously get, this is not a trainer, but you can obviously get a Drizzile, which is going for around $4. Evolution Incense is going for about $1, and a lot of these cards are worth a decent amount of money. So, and considering the fact of the matter that when it comes to purchasing the packs, they're honestly pretty cheap. So your actual pull rate of being able to open a pack and make your money's worth is going to be considerably high in, my opinion. So here, we'll try and open it up on the sealed product. I apologize for the delay on that. But yeah, no, if we're just looking at a general pack, like loose, it's about $337, $338, right? So let's say you're just trying to open for fun, right? If you're opening a bunch of these Sword and Shield packs, you have a pretty high chance of pulling an uncommon Drizzile. You've got a pretty high chance of pulling a couple of trainers that are going to be worth your money's worth. And let's say you don't pull those. Well, you've got still a pretty high chance that you're going to pull a V card that could at least be worth how much you spent in the pack. So, there is some upsides to the set, even though there aren't a bunch of really big hitters from a collectability perspective. But as far as it goes, I'm really more focused on the fact that the set itself it's just not a super collectible set in my personal opinion. Now going over the items in which I personally think will be the best to invest in. Like I said before, really hate to do this, but I would say the Sword and Shield Elite Trainer boxes. They did a reprint for this, I want to say about 4 or 5 months ago. So it obviously the prices on these are probably hitting their bottoms, if not turning around. So in regards to Sword and Shield product, I would say this is kind of your best bet in regards to, like I said, sealed. You could look into some of these other tins. Some of them, depending upon the print, have cosmic or evolutions. That is, like I said, depending upon the print. So you can take a risk on that and the value of it going up over time. But I just like the collectability more of the ETBs being a lot safer in my personal opinion. Now, moving on to the next set, that is going to be Rebel Clash. So Rebel Clash is, in my, once again, opinion, kind of a terrible set for a lot of very similar reasons. The only reason why I actually listed this set slightly above base set is because, one, I think that there's more value to be found when comparing it with the collectible items you can get sealed. And then two, as far as it goes, I do think that in regards to, once again, the competitive viability of when you can pull cards, you're going to have more cards that you can pull in the uncommon slot that you're going to make your money's worth. Sure, the big hitter is not like a $4 like Drizzile, but if you look at it, it's got 1, 2, 3, 4 cards that are in within a dollar range that you could potentially pull. So that gives it a lot more value. Once again, from an opening perspective, I think it's around the same price as your standard Sword and Shield. Going back to the just general cards in the set, they're absolutely atrocious, kind of like the Marnie. You got the boss's orders, and then once again just a bunch of other miscellaneous cards that are really not going to do much for you. Some of them are competitively viable, some of them are collectible. I understand that. It's kind of a bummer they didn't have, in my opinion, a rainbow Milotic. I think that would have changed the set a decent amount, not like a crazy amount, but having a rainbow Milotic could have definitely added value to the set. But once again, just going back on a lot of the Gen 9 Pokemon that I'm not crazy about. And once again, going back to the main item that I love, man, I've said once again so many times, I apologize. I do love the Sword and Shield figure collection. It does have, of course, a Cosmic Eclipse pack that gives value to it, but I would say that typically speaking, when it comes to promos, Japan has always done way better at promos than English. But they kind of knocked out of the park with this promo, personally speaking. So when comparing it to the value of what you're going to get out of a Rebel Clash booster box, figure collection, elite trainer box, I would say this is the one you're going to get the most value out of. Obviously, that doesn't mean I recommend you invest in any of these right now. Of course, this is not financial advice, it's not financial advisor, but hypothetically, if you were to invest in some Rebel Clash, this is going to be the one I think that will yield the greatest return over time. So the next set that I am going to rank that is going to be one of the worst ones is Battle Styles. And I hate to do this because, honestly speaking, I would say Battle Styles is a very underrated set in my personal opinion. Of course, my personal opinion. But when you take a look at a lot of the cards in the set, I can still, of course, understand why people are not the biggest fans of Battle Styles in and of itself. When you're talking about main polls, I don't know why, when comparing it to, say, a set like Darkness Ablaze, you wouldn't prefer this set over Darkness. Of course, there's a Charizard, so that's why it's going to have better value over time. So when we're talking about ranking it, I am, of course, calculating in or factoring in what you could see value-wise over time when it comes to people wanting to collect. And people do love them Charizards. That's what gives the set so much more power. But when you talk about the main pulls that you can ultimately get in the set, it's really just the Tyranitar under a tree. You've got a Houndoom Gold, which I do think is pretty cool. You do have, of course, the Empoleon, and then you have the Urshifu's and Level Balls. Which Urshifu's, if you're not a fan of Urshifu's, then, I mean, really, it's just the main three of the Tyranitar, the Houndoom, and the Empoleon. So there's not many things to pull, but of course, there's more things to pull, which is going to give it, once again, more value. than say something like a set like a Rebel Clash and a Sword and Shield base, because first and foremost, the value that you're going to get out of these cards is so much greater if you do get one of those big hitters. Of course, you're not going to have these uncommon cards that are going to yield you as great of a return if you are not getting those big hitter packs. You do have cards that are a decent price, like, 20 cents, but we're not talking like several bucks. That's something that you're, of course, reserving mainly for the Rebel Clash and the Sword and Shield base. It's mainly just, of course, focused on the main pulls. And then outside of that, when talking about, okay, what is the best sealed product to invest in? Once again, hate to do it, but I think it's personally the Elite Trainer boxes. And the reason why is because at least Elite Trainer boxes are going to have that collectability value to it. You look at any of the product outside of it, it's very much undesirable cards with, and by cards, I mean like promo cards like a Rapidash V-Box. No one really cares about that much, and it has a bunch of the Battle Styles packs. So it's like, for them, this isn't a collectible item. They don't care to open it for the pack, so it's not going to give them that value. So the Elite Trainer boxes are going to be a lot better of a pickup because it does have that collectability aspect when people like to collect the Elite Trainer boxes. Now, the next set, speaking of the one I just absolutely dunked on, Darkness Ablaze. Darkness Ablaze is a set that I am not the biggest fan of in my personal opinion. Wow, I am really just saying my personal opinion a lot today, but hopefully understandable because I want to make it very clear this is all my personal opinion, because I know how controversial it can be saying, how dare you say this set is better than this set? It's like, come on, guys. Like, this is me just giving my opinion. You can, of course, always disagree. But when taking a look at the set itself, what do you got? You got a Charizard, you got a Salamence, which is kind of cool, and that's it. And for those people that don't like Salamances, you have a Charizard. That's it. And the crazy thing is, that is all it has, and there are 3 sets behind it. And literally, the only thing that's giving it that value is because of the Charizard. And that just goes to show you that even a terrible set, like having a Charizard, will make a huge difference. Sure, you can say this has a little bit of better value in regards to, uncommons compared to battle styles. But in regards to outside of the commons, main pulls, I'd personally say Battle Styles is a better set than Darkness Ablaze, but of course it has the Charizard, which is going to give it its main value. Now, going back to it, with the Darkness Ablaze, best item I want to invest in, it would be the Elite Trainer box, because once again, it is going to be a very desirable item, and it just got a reprint recently, so you're seeing the history of how much it went to at its peak, around 140. There wasn't a high print of it because it was during the pandemic, so obviously that played a factor of why it rose so much in a year and a half's worth of time. But we know this is about to go out of standard rotation, and so there's more than likely going to be 0 reprints once we get past August Worlds, because it won't be you won't be able to play the cards in the set in standard format. But I absolutely do love this item specifically from a long-term investment perspective, because it is a part of a set that does happen to have a Charizard in it. But now, speaking of, once again, Charizards in the set, Champions Path, or as a lot of people like to call it, Machamps Path. This is, once again, another set that I think is absolutely terrible. I am not the biggest fan of it, and the only reason why it has any sort of value goes back to the fact of, look, it has Charizards in the set. If it weren't for the Charizards in the set, you've got a Gardevoir, and that is it. So, I mean, it's nice that they've got the Charizards, but it's one of the worst sets from an opening perspective, in my personal opinion. When you're talking about the uncommon cards that you can pull from a competitive perspective, it's literally the Rotom's Phone, and then you've got a couple of other ones after this in the 20-cent range, but basically nothing's worth pulling to make up your money's worth, which also brings it down in value. It just comes down to, you got 2 Charizards, and then when you're talking about the Elite Trainer box, the Elite Trainer box does have a Charizard on it, which is going to make it extremely desirable for a lot of people when collecting ETBs, because having a Charizard on the front of an Elite Trainer box gives it a ton of value. Now, like I said before, I didn't want everything to just be Elite Trainer box, Elite Trainer box, Elite Trainer box, so I'm going to think outside the box in this one and say Champions Path Premium Collection. As we know, waifu, specifically Marnie, is one that is very desirable character. I think she is one that a lot of people are really sleeping on in regards to this box. What I love about it the most is it comes with a playmat of Marnie, and I think that's absolutely amazing. I think it's super cool. It does also come with 8 Pokemon TCG Champions Path booster packs. Obviously, it's pretty expensive right now, and so, but comparing it to the price of this versus the ETB, you know, the MSRP for the ETB was around $50. It's going for around 100, 110. You can probably get it below 90 for some places. And then as far as this goes, this was also retailing for around $50 to 60, depending upon where you bought it from. So it's also yielded around a very similar return on value, and I do think that it could be a very good investment if we're not talking about the Elite Trainer box. So I would say they're pretty neck and neck, but for me personally, I like this item a lot better just because it does have that playmat that is super duper cool. I mean, I literally use it for those people that watch my live streams when I do breaks. I use the playmat as kind of the background setting because I just think it's absolutely gorgeous. So that's one thing to consider when looking at that item. Now, the next set, Fusion Strike. I think the reason why Fusion Strike is going to, of course, for me personally, out compete Champions Path and Darkness Ablaze mainly just comes down to the fact of the matter that it's not just saturated by only Charizard cards. There's at least a little bit more to Fusion Strike. When you're talking about the general cards within the set, you do have, of course, a Mew. You do have, of course, a Celebi. You do have, of course, a Gengar and an Espeon. So those are like some of the main big hitters, and the value on these cards are pretty nice. I mean, it's pretty, of the sets that we've talked about so far, it's the most valuable of the top pulls that you could get. Obviously, if you're saying just the percentage, like if you're talking about just straight dollar value, obviously the Charizards are more expensive, but comparing it to the runner-ups after the Charizards, it has way more pulls that you can get. And you can get something like even a Mew VMAX, which is a pretty easy card to pull in my opinion, because you are guaranteed 1 to 2 VMAXs on average per booster box. You have a pretty high chance of pulling one of these VMAXs, and most VMAXs in sets can range anywhere between 10 to like a couple bucks at best. So being able to pull one that's worth upwards of $30 and some instances 10 to 15, I mean, you've got an opportunity to definitely make up your money's worth when talking about if you don't hit these big hitters. Now, once again, going and looking at some of the uncommon cards in the set, because I always like to consider this when we're talking about opening, how you can make your money's worth off of bulk. It has a lot of cards that are part of the competitively viable set that are worth over, you know, that 20 cents, 30 cents, 40 cents mark. Not comparing it, of course, to Rebel or Sword and Shield. That still has them beat. But still, being able to open a set where you can get some massive hitters and still make up for it with a lot of the trainers is something that's super nice. When talking about the items itself, this one was really hard for me. I know that I'm showing you guys the Pokemon Center Elite Trainer Box exclusive, but I want to make this one very clear that if you're not going for the Elite Trainer Box, then I would personally say that the V-Stars, I really do enjoy the V-Stars for Leafeon and Glaceon. This came out shortly around that time, so that's why I would say I consider it in that era, because if you do take a look at the box's value in and of itself, it has a couple of Fusion Strike packs within itself, and I just think it's a really cool piece that will do well long term. I think it does have some Evolving Skies. I'm not 100% certain, but for that reason, I do think you could see some really good value in itself. So, and it's interesting to see, because if you're talking about selling the regular standard one, it's going for $28, but if you go and buy the bundle with the Leafeon and the Glaceon, you can get it for well under the $28 mark, which is the lowest listed. And of course, this hasn't sold in 5 days, so who knows how accurate the value of this actually is. But it's still a really cool item that I think is undervalued right now. That'll do well long term. But if we aren't talking about that, Fusion Strike, I just love the Pokemon Center ETB coloring in the background. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. I think for that reason, it has a very vibrant contrast compared to the standard one, which is this coloring, and I think that makes it extremely collectible if we're not picking the V-Star, Glaceon, and Leafeon. Plus, you guys know my stance on EV cards. I think EV cards will do well over time. This one might seem controversial, it might not seem controversial, but I'm going to put Chilling Reign right above Fusion Strike. I myself have talked about the long-term value of Fusion Strike. I do think that from a sealed ETB perspective, I think Fusion Strike will outperform Chilling Reign just because Mew is a lot more desirable of a character. But in regards to opening product, And the amount of main pulls that you can get in this set is so much more. You can get a Galarian Moltres, you can get a Blaziken, you can get a Snorlax, you can get a Shadow Rider, you can get all these other alternate arts for a decent price. So the value is slightly more when you're talking about what you can get for main pulls, slightly more, like very slightly more compared to Fusion. So this is like sets like slightly above. So it has some of those characters that will bring value to the set, and that I do enjoy. Outside of that, when talking about uncommon, do we have any main hits? No, not really. Fusion's going to beat that in regards to, okay, if I open up, what can I get on trainer cards that are going to make up in value? So it really just comes to the fact that this has 2-3 cards more in the set that you could potentially pull that, if you get a big hitter, it's going to make up for it more. But if you're telling me, Eli, would you rather be opening Fusion to make up your money versus Chilling Reign? I would say personally, I'd much rather open Fusion because you're going to have a better chance of opening up and getting your money's worth just because you're going to have the trainers to make up for it. But if you're trying to, get one of those big hitters and let's say, hit the top 4, you still have a large amount of other items that you could potentially get that are slightly more valuable than Fusion. But going back to, once again, the Fusion ETB, I think that it's going to be way more collectible because of the Mew and that being a character that's strongly desired compared to the Calyrex boxes. However, I do think the Calyrex boxes will still do well, specifically the PC ones, because for those people that don't know, there was an actual issue with the first PC ones. They're supposed to have 10 sleeve packs in them, but instead, or not sleeve, but 10 packs in them, but instead they had 8, so it was an error on their part. If you can get this with the 3-pack, apology blister, or it was 2 packs, it came with 3 of the original Bird Trio for the Galarian variation, and then I think you're going to do just fine. So from a set, slightly better than Chilling Reign, than Fusion, like slightly better. I like Fusion myself better, but it's just hard for me to choose. It's hard for me to choose Fusion over Chilling just purely based on there are a good amount more, I shouldn't say a good amount, there's a slight amount of better pulls that you can get in Chilling compared to Fusion. But from an ETB perspective, it's no doubt in my mind that Fusion will do way better than Chilling Reign in the long term. Now, next set is going to be Vivid Voltage. Now, this one's a little bit interesting. And a lot of people are going to be like, Eli, why Vivid Voltage? When you talk about the main hitter cards that you can get in the set, it's Pikachu, and, that's it. There's nothing crazy. Now, for the longest time, this was one of the most desirable sets. I remember at one point this went up to 240 before Wave 2 had even come out yet. And that was mainly because it had amazing rare. So from an opening perspective, this is one of the most fun sets to open when talking about the reintroduction of cards that you can pull in the reverse holo slot. That gave it a lot of value, in my opinion. Obviously, the cards themselves have been massively overprinted, so the value of the Rayquaza, I mean, if we want to just take a look and see over the yearly, and this isn't the full extent of it, this card was at one point worth 40-50 bucks, and now it's worth 15. This set has been absolutely printed into the ground as one of the reasons why, but it has a Charizard, it has a Rayquaza, it has a Celebi that you can pull in that reverse rare slot, which gives it a lot of value. It has a Pikachu VMAX, which also gives it value. So it just has a really strong foundation, I would say, of anchor cards, because they're so much more desirable when you have these cards that you can pull in the set that people like to collect because of the character strength. In regards to looking at uncommon cards, it's probably the weakest we've seen so far when pulling uncommon value, so that does make it kind of hard to really make up for the value. But once again, going back to the strength of characters will carry sets all day if you have really strong characters. From an opening perspective, value wise, I would say you're going to lose the most opening this set, hands down, just because the value of this has been printed in the ground. But the Elite Trainer box is one of the best designed Elite Trainer boxes, in my opinion, of the Sword and Shield era block. If we're not going with the Vivid Voltage ETB, though, then I would easily say the Elite Trainer Box Plus is for the Zacian and Zamazente. I think at one point these retail for 50 to 60 bucks. I think the value you can get out of these is absolutely great. You get a gold and black card, as well as a decent amount of packs. I think 12 packs altogether. Yeah, 12 packs. So the value you're getting out of these two are insane. The only reason why I'm putting Vivid Voltage slightly above these two items for the standard Elite Trainer box is because it just had a reprint. So the value you're going to be getting out of this at the price you're going to be entering in is so great versus you're already paying above MSRP for these two. But there is an argument to be made that since this is going to be so much less printed than the Vivid Voltage ETBs, that these could do better. So that's something to consider when looking at these 3 items. But a decent amount of variety for sure in regards to of the 3 items, or if you want to collect 1 of 2 or 2 of 3 that you could potentially invest in long term in the Vivid Voltage era of product. But moving on to the next set, I would say Shining Fates. Shining Fates, of course, going back to it, what makes Shining Fates so great? I would say when you compare it to a set such as Hidden Fates, there's no denying Hidden Fates is far superior. But of course, it is a set that still has a Shiny Vault. I think it's the only other set that has a Shiny Vault like Hidden Fates. I mean, if you want to talk about Shining Legends, that's a different example. Or if you want to talk about Call of Legends, then obviously you can make that. But when I say a Shiny Vault, I'm talking about specifically, baby shinies, full art shinies. It's only Hidden Fates that does something else like that. And of course, once again, Charizard. Shiny Charizard. It's nice to see that you do get a lot of other shinies that you could potentially pull. Suicune's cool, Drizzle's expensive, and Inteleon's expensive because of competitive viability. Nothing crazy outside of that. Mainly just competitively viable cards, a couple of character cards that people enjoy. But honestly, the reason why I put it at rank number 4 is based on the fact of the matter, it has that Shiny Charizard and it has a lot of shinies. When talking about the uncommon cards that you can pull in the set, there is not a lot of uncommon cards that are worth anything, if not any, in all honesty. We can take a look and see right now, do we have any uncommons that are actually worth pulling? I'm gonna make a statement saying probably no, honestly. Yeah, I mean, this is the worst set so far we've looked at in regards to pulling uncommons for making up value. So opening wise, you're gonna have a ton of loss in value, but what makes it such a great set for a lot of people is because it has a high pull rate when you're talking about baby shinies, has a decent pull rate when you're talking about full arts. It's fun to collect a lot of these cards because it still has a ton of collectability value, even if the shinies aren't the strongest within the set. So that, of course, will allow it to have a strong yield over time. Not to mention, we just had a reprint for the Elite Trainer box, and it has an Eevee on the front cover. I think that's going to give it a lot of value long term, so I do like it for that reason. But runner-up items, I do think the Shining Fates Premium Collection for both the Dragapult as well as the Crobat is pretty much undervalued, in my honest opinion. The fact that this hasn't moved up a ton, it's going for around $60. I remember when I was going to GameStop, it was selling for $50, and then at some other places it was selling for $40. So the value that you're getting right now off of this long-term, considering that it hasn't been nearly as printed as much as the Elite Trainer box, you could see a large incline on this item in the relatively near future, considering it's been kind of sideways for a while. It's been a slow growth, but I could see these items absolutely destroying in the near future for sure, especially when looking at some of these other, spring collection sets that do have very much low prints for items outside of the ETBs and pin collections, when comparing it to Hidden Fate. So, these premium collections could end up being a really good investment. Celebrations is obviously ranked number 3 in my opinion, based off of the kind of nostalgic appeal it has. A lot of people really, when it first came out, enjoyed opening it. Of course, if you want to, we can go over and see some of the cards in Celebrations, but I feel like if you know Celebrations, main pull perspective, not a ton of big hitters from a value perspective, but a ton of cool cards to collect. 100%. This is an extremely collectible set. When talking about the common cards, there aren't any common cards in this set. They're all going to be holos, but of course that's what makes it the Celebration set. And when talking about the cards that you can get that are just the general holo rares, you're talking about 10 plus cents each one. So it's not like the worst, having uncommon cards like 2-3 versus having a bunch of commons that are worth only pennies, like 2-3 cents versus 10, 20, 30 cents, and then having them all be that, it makes up for it in value, but the packs are a lot less in the cards you're going to be pulling. So opening, I would say not as good, but it's still a very collectible set. It's a very desirable set. I've looked at the history of a set such as Generations. It's performed extremely well. This is a set that could potentially be going out of print either now or within at least May. And when we're talking about items that are more than likely not going to be reprinted again, I know a lot of people really want the Celebrations Ultra Premium, and a lot of people want to talk about it. I know, of course, the PC exclusive ETBs, people want to talk about it, but I want to give some love to an item that I've talked about very heavily that I think will do extremely well. And that's going to be the Celebrations Mini Tin display. I absolutely love the display and the design on this when it's completely sealed. I think it's going to do really well long term, and you've already seen the value of it. Actually, you know, at its pre-order price, it was $176, so that's a pre-order price is pretty high. But from the floor to what we've seen now, in the past like 3 to 4 months, you've seen it skyrocket up, at least in, you know, 50, 60, 70% maybe. I mean, what are we talking about? From its low 85 all the way up to 123. I mean, you can do the math for me. That's at least a 30 to 40% gain within 4 months, which I think is insane. And I think that this is not going to be something that's heavily printed, so you could really see the value of this item go up really, really well long term. And I absolutely think it's super displayable. And that's what I just love so much about it. So Celebrations is definitely going to be one of those top sets in the Sword and Shield era, where it's going to be pretty hard to go wrong with the items that you're going to invest in it when talking about sealed product. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I think this is probably going to be one of my top picks, if we're not including the PC ETB and the Ultra Premium Collection as other items. Now, the next set and the runner-up, in my personal opinion, for the second best set in the Sword and Shield era block, it is going to be Brilliant Star. Some people think it's controversial, some people don't. But I think Brilliant Star is an amazing set. Obviously, it reintroduced the Trainer Gallery. Those people don't know, the last time it was introduced, it was in Cosmic Eclipse. Cosmic Eclipse is arguably one of the best sets in the Sword and Shield era. Or sorry, not Sword and Shield, Sun and Moon era outside of Hidden Fates. It has some amazing cards in the set when you're talking about the EVs. I know a lot of people are a big fan of Mimikyus. Has some other EV cards that are a little less expensive because of the pull rates, but still has a decent trainer gallery. And then when you talk about just the standard set in and of itself, outside of the trainer gallery, it's got a Charizard, which is going to give it a strong value. It's got an Arceus, and a lot of people do like Arceus's card, and it has some of the Galarian birds, which obviously gave a lot of value to Chilling Reign. So the pulls in and of itself, there's a decent amount that you can get from this set. The only reason why I would say this is a runner-up or second set is because of just the massive strength that the upcoming set has. But this is still by far, I mean, it's the second best set in the Sword and Shield block, personally speaking. So I absolutely love it. When talking about uncommon cards to pull, not really super strong. It's like middle of the road in regards to making up value when opening. And from personal experience, the pull rates have been devastating in this set. So it also brings in a factor of, okay, there's not really a good pull rate for Brilliant Star. People will say, well, yeah, well, you've got a lot of character rares that make up for it, but I've opened over 1,000 packs and I've pulled one alternate art, and I've never had that in any other set ever. So, and the amount of rainbows I've pulled probably about, out of 1,000, I've pulled about 5 or 6 rainbows, and none of them are Charizard or Arceus. They've all been Whimsicott or Shaman. So maybe I'm putting in a little bit of my own personal bias, but I think this is more of just, a statistical argument to what brings it down a little bit. But still, I mean, it's still second best, so that's hard to make a bad argument about it. But the item that I would say best to invest in, and honestly, I think this is the #1 item out of all the sets we've talked about, is the Arceus V figure collection, especially considering it does have a Cosmic Eclipse pack in it. Now, if it doesn't have a Cosmic Eclipse pack, obviously you see it in the stock image it does. A lot of people have said it is, but there's speculation it might not. It will bring down the value a little bit, but I do think that having these promo cards and having these figures do bring up a lot of value, and there's so much collectability, especially when comparing it to, my top pick for Rebel Clash, which if we go back and look and see how that did, it was retailing at one point for $25, and it's already sitting at around $105 within 2 years of being put on the shelf. So it's 4x 5x depending upon what price you were able to get it for, if it was at MSRP or below. So I think this will do just as well, if not better, because it is Arceus, and as well because it has 2 Brilliant Star packs. And Brilliant Star, once again, is an amazing set that I do think will allow it to have a ton of value over time, for sure. But next set, and probably the most obvious set for what the #1 is, in my opinion, is Evolving Skies. Evolutions, yeah, right? I mean, what is there to say about this set other than it's just absolutely amazing? We just look at the cards within the set. It's got, it's got the Evolutions, it's got a Rayquaza. The value of these cards are absolutely ridiculous. When you're talking about how many big hitters, I mean, when talking about cards that you can just pull over $100, I mean, $300, $200, $148, $127, $120, $92. Like, by far, if you're opening this, the biggest hit hands down, that you could possibly get. Now, what I find very interesting about this is when you talk about from an opening perspective, is it worth opening this set compared to other ones? Value wise, once again, middle of the road for uncommons. But when talking about the overall, okay, what can I get if I were to get one of the big hitters and try and make up for any sort of losses, buying the booster box being at around 170 is just not the right move. You're not going to more than likely make up your value's worth unless you hit one of these big hitters. However, one thing, of course, that I do think is extremely interesting to think about, and of course, I'm not, not financial advice, not a financial advisor, but it's slightly cheaper if you were to buy a product that does have Evolving Skies booster packs with them. Still, I mean, these packs are worth $5, which is really crazy to think about how much more that these have gone up. You could probably find blisters in your Walmart and other places for around that, $4 price range. I wouldn't be surprised if you could find it for under that price. So if you can, then great. That's a good deal. But honestly, this is one of those sets where it's so expensive to buy, like especially when we're talking about it being such a newer set. It's gonna be really hard to make your money's worth unless you get one of those big hitters. Then you massively hit the jackpot. But once again, I mean, we're not here to talk about outside of just opening. We're talking about how gorgeous the artworks are, how amazing it is when they pick the characters and how they were going to do this. So absolutely gorgeous set, And then when talking about Evolving Skies and what the best sealed product to invest in, I would say definitely the Pokemon Center exclusive / the regular ETBs. You're probably going to get more value currently off the regular ETBs since they MSRP for $40, and you can still get them for around $50 to $60. Some places $45. So I think that is a pretty good deal. If we're talking outside of that, I do think the Evolution Tins are going to do well. Of course, the Evolution Tins only include one Evolving Skies pack, so that's going to, of course, make it lose some value, but having these promos is still going to be very huge for them in the long term. But overall, you can't really go wrong in regards to this set. It's just absolutely gorgeous, and there's a reason why I think it's my #1 best set overall for the Sword and Shield era block. But wrapping it up, when talking about the ranking it from worst to best, Sword and Shield base, talking about wanting the Elite Trainer box, it's going to be your best item. Rebel Clash is going to be ranked second worst, with the figure collection being the next item to pick. Battle Styles with the ETBs. Darkness Ablaze with the ETBs. Champions Path with the Premium Collection / ETB. Fusion Strike with the V-Star Leafeon Glaceon / ETB. Then Chilling Rain. Of course, make sure you get the three Vs for the Galarian Birds and the 2 packs to make up for the Air Box. Then Vivid Voltage, once again talking about the ETB / the premium ETBs. Shining Fates is going to be your next one, with the ETBs having just reprinted, and as well as the Dragapult and the Crobats being undervalued in my opinion. Celebrations, I think you can't go wrong with, the PC ETBs, the regular ETBs, or the Ultra Premium Collection, but this is my personal favorite pick. Arceus V figure collection for Brilliant Star, as well as Brilliant Star being the second best set. It's an amazing set. And then lastly, Evolving Skies. Probably the best items to pick up are going to be that ETB standard, but I do like to give a little bit of love to outside of items other than ETBs with the EV Evolution Tins. Even though they only have 1 pack, I do think the promos are going to give them value from a collectability perspective. I know this was a little bit longer video. I do apologize. Hopefully you guys did enjoy the breakdown, but as always, make sure to leave a like, comment down below, and be subscribed if you want to enter into our weekly giveaways. We post videos each and every week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, which allows you to comment 3 times on those videos and like both 3 times on those videos, which is multiple entries. And then we have 3 winners each and every week that each receive 12 Brilliant Star packs. So multiple opportunities to enter, multiple opportunities to win. But once again, that is all we have for today's video. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Until then, I will see you guys on Monday. Peace.